The following program contains scenes and language of a frank and explicit nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is The Loudness, where our random, rowdy, and raunchy band of misfits create top 10 lists of life's most insane shit. Be scared. Nothing is off limits. So congratulations.
You just made the list!
I'm the music god CJ Plain. This is another episode, number 10, as represented right here. This is a loud list. You know what we do here? We create lists that rock. Episode 10, you guys have been subjected, punished, or whatever term you want to use by this show, which is on today's guest's network. He has been kind enough to allow me to be a part of his network. And hopefully, I haven't seen the numbers, but hopefully they're better than zero. So
you're correct. They are better than zero.
With that said, this is Mr. Mike Hilty. He represents the SPDM Podcast Network. I have no idea what SPDM stands for, so he may be kind enough to tell you who he is and what it stands for.
Oh, this is super embarrassing, but hey, it is what it is. So when I was in high school, I had a group of friends, really close-knit group of friends, and we liked movies. And one day at a sleepover, we decided to make like a little improv movie. And we called it, it was kind of like based on Goodfellas, because we wanted to be gangsters. We thought we were hot shit. But then we called it the St. Patrick's Day Massacre. So I named my podcast network after that goofy ass movie that we made.
Not the silliest or the strangest or even the dumbest thing I've heard. I mean,
that's comforting to know.
I've had a few things that we've used over the years for shock effect. Let's say one of the very first punk bands I was in, the whole idea was to be as brutally offensive and shocking as possible. We wanted to be the Two Live Crew of punk, and we had, my grandfather is infamous when he gets. My grandfather doesn't swear. The closest my father or grandfather comes to swearing is he'll say, "Jesus H. Christ, what did you do now?" So my first thought was I wanted to name the band not Jesus H. Christ. I wanted to name it Jesus H. Christ. So we went with that.
And then that went over well.
My guitar player was like, "Well, that's not far enough. You gotta have something behind it. Like Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band, or blah blah blah." And I was like, "Okay, so what do you put with it?" So we're sitting around, and my buddy's like, "I got it." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Jesus H. Christ and the Snuff Film Stars."
Whoa, that escalated quickly.
Yeah, right? So we're like, that ought to piss off pretty much everybody on the spectrum, the Catholics, just pretty much everybody. So we never did actually record any music or anything, but it was sort of this stupid idea we had for about 3.5 minutes. But like I said, it was just, young, stupid, too much alcohol, and,
So when I play fantasy football, and for the longest time, my fantasy football team was called Suitcase of Orphan Meat. It's from this YouTube video called Two Llamas with Hats. And they said it in one, and it just stuck. And it took like a couple years before someone was like, "Okay, who is this guy? And why does he have this name?" So instead I shifted, and I name all my fantasy sports teams after the names in the Key and Peele East-West Bowl skit. Yeah. So, and then if I win, I'll retire that name and move on to something else, because there's plenty. And right now, Quackadilly Blip is not doing great in any of them, but it's all good. I got plenty of time.
Yeah, you gotta have a sense of humor, man. The one rule I live by, people have to remember with me, I grew up in a generation of Sam Kinison, Andrew Dice Clay, Red Fox, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy. So for anyone who takes anything I say seriously, please don't. Everything is said with a grain of salt. Everything is said to be a joke, basically.
For sure. Yeah. I gotcha.
I mean, I can be serious if I have to be, but I try not to be because, let's face it,
We got one life, man. Gotta have some fun, right?
In the words of Jim Morrison, no one gets out alive. So,
Touche.
yeah. So for today's show, before we get all long-winded and pontificate beyond,
Which you and I have a tendency to do because
yes,
you have so graciously come on many of my podcasts, which I'm greatly appreciative of. So
yeah,
I'm glad to finally reciprocate and get on yours so that we could talk this fun but difficult top 10 list that
yes.
we put
Today
together.
we are going to pontificate. That is
Mhm.
the word of the day. Look it up if you don't know what it means. We are going to discuss the top 10 greatest and or personal favorite cartoons, animated series, cartoon characters. They're all kind of the same. So with that said, we would start with the honorable mentions, and pretty sure this gentleman has a longer list than I do. I've only got 3 on mine.
I do, unfortunately, because you mentioned that you were looking through like a list and going online
Yeah,
to scavenge, and I was doing something similar, and I just wrote down a bunch, and I was like, fuck, I can't believe I forgot that. Fuck, I can't believe it. But
yeah, like
my my honorable mentions list, I'm a little ashamed that some of them are honorable mentions, but hey, it is what it is. It's my list, so
I mean,
whatever.
I had
So
7 right off the top that I knew were going to be on the list, but I wanted to kind of make sure that I wasn't like mental fart.
right,
Oh,
right.
things I forgot. So I started going through the list and was just kind of like, ah, shit, forgot that one, forgot about
Mhm.
that one, forgot about
Yeah.
that one.
That's exactly what happened with me as well. So my honorable mentions, I've got Looney Tunes, The Jetsons, BoJack Horseman, Bob's Burgers, The Tick, The Flintstones, Rocky and Bullwinkle, He-Man, like the original one, the one from the 80s, not all the spin-offs that are on Netflix now, which are good. I enjoy them. Invincible, Star Trek Lower Decks, Scooby-Doo, Doug, Schoolhouse Rock, and then kind of the ones that were like last ones out were Beavis and Butthead, Batman the Animated Series, and Family Guy. So those are all my honorable mentions.
Oh, shit, you just went over about half of my list. So,
Sorry, I apologize about
no, you're
that.
good. You're good. I mean, I figured we would kind of diverge a little bit, but at the
A little
same
bit.
time, we were going to have much differing views. Probably just, the sort of the generation gap and where we're both from. So, it's all good. My honorable mentions, my first one, seated on the list, was like, oh, damn, forgot that one. Adventures of Jimmy Neutron, boy genius.
Mm,
I love Jimmy Neutron. I have Beavis and Butthead as an honorable mention, only because there were just too many.
yeah, there's too
And
many good ones to choose from.
my third and last honorable mention, I really wanted it in my top 10, but I just really couldn't justify knocking one of my top 10 out. So that my third is The Boondocks. Really, it was one of them shows I didn't want to like or I didn't think I would like, but there were so many elements to it that it was just like, you kind of watch it and you're like, okay, you realize you knew people that were these characters, you
Right.
know, growing up and being someone who was in foster care on the north side of Flint. I knew a number of people who were sort of, real life versions of these caricatures.
Gotcha.
So, I was like, Boondocks got to be on there because, So, with that said, at number 10 for you, what you got?
Oh, my number 10. I'm a little ashamed about this, but if I was looking at it honestly with myself and the sheer amount of times I've watched this since becoming a parent, I had to at least put it at number 10 on a draft of this. This was originally like much higher, and then I got to thinking about it and I was like, no, there's no way. My number 10 is Bluey. And you know, as a parent watching Bluey with your kids, this show was clearly made by a parent. And they get it because they get how unbelievably frustrating it could be being a parent sometimes. But they also get it that they got to do stuff for kids as well. So I find myself sometimes even just putting Bluey on in the background. I'm a little ashamed to admit that, but some of these episodes they get you good, man. So my number 10, Bluey. If I was just being completely honest with myself, I'll just go with that one.
I will readily admit, the last of my children is 13. I have not seen a single episode of Bluey yet. So I have no idea. I've seen it, obviously, different things for it and people obsessing over it and whatnot, but not
Yeah,
something I've actually seen. So I've no clue what it's
yeah.
about, what it's like, or
It is
um,
it's literally about talking dogs. There's this family of four. There's Bluey, who's right around my oldest daughter's age. Bingo, who's her little sister, who is right around my youngest's age, mom, dad, and the hijinks that they get into. And they talk about things like, what happens when somebody makes fun of you at school, or what happens when you go, when you go to the park and you get frustrated about something. But then they have stupid episodes, like there's one where they have a trial to figure out if the dad farted on one of the kids. So
eh,
and it's Australian, the kids are really cute. My one daughter, like Bluey said something in one of the episodes, and now she says it all the time, where they're trying to figure out what they're gonna eat for dinner, and the mom is like, well, what do you want to eat? Because I've suggested a bunch of things and you haven't said yes to any of them. And she said, I don't know what I want, but I know I want something. Like, for fuck's sake, if that isn't parenting to a
yeah.
T, like like I don't know what else could be.
I mean, that's just life in general.
Mm.
Like, like the whole dating thing,
Yeah.
like going back out into the dating thing after being married for 14 years and going through a divorce and being single for 4 years. I get asked all the time, what are you looking for? I don't know what I'm looking for, but I'll know it when I see it.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
I can't put into words exactly what it is,
Mm.
but I'll know it when it's there. Like,
Right.
my brain will say, that's the one. Like,
That's it's you. It's you. Yeah.
yeah, so people get really frustrated when I do that, like, what kind of woman do you like? I don't really know, but I'll know when I see you, like I can't describe like what the perfect woman looks like, but there's certain features and it's like, so it's combination of features. When I see that person, I'll be like, yo, that's what
You
I'm, you
you
know.
you come
Um,
here. I would
yeah,
like to talk with you.
yeah. So my number 10 is much simpler. Cartoon I got into, silly, dumb, but funny. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Which
To
version?
it while working at Cedar Point, and it normally was on during the time I was home before I had to go to work. So it was always kind of one of them things where I would watch it before I went to work. So
This will show up on my list as
yeah,
well.
I kind of figured,
This
you
was
strike me as a Ninja Turtles type of person.
this is prime sweet spot for me growing up. So, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was just a show that I had all the VHSs
Yeah.
that were available. I had all the toys. Yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had me hook,
And
line,
we're
and
talking
sinker.
original Ninja Turtles, not that atrocity that they're trying to pass off now.
They've had so many different versions, and I don't know, none of them can just hold a candle to the original. God, the theme song is awesome. Yeah, it's this.
I'm sorry, but Leonardo wearing glasses just doesn't.
It doesn't do it for you.
It doesn't have the same punch. Like I get it. He's a computer geek, but like I've never seen a ninja wearing glasses like this. So
Fair.
um,
I
you know
gotcha. Mhm.
um, nearsighted ninja doesn't have quite as much ring to it.
Mhm.
So number nine, what is at number nine?
My number nine is Daria on
Okay.
MTV. I really loved Daria. This is back in the day when MTV didn't have shit on television. So, and it just kind of perfectly encapsulates just what kind of sucks about being a teenager, and
Yeah.
what high school can actually be like a little bit. And she's just so snarky and so sarcastic. And I went back and I rewatched it and I was like, man, is this show the reason why I'm such an asshole sometimes? It might be, but yeah, I love Daria. This is one of two shows kind of in that era that will end up on my list. But yeah, I love Daria. Daria's great.
That's why I had Beavis and Butthead as an honorable mention because mostly the reason I'm an asshole. or the
I,
bigger part of the reason I'm an asshole. But
well, I see, and my mom would not allow me to watch two shows at the house. One was Beavis and Butthead, and another show is on my list because I didn't listen to her. So we'll get to that later.
So number 9 for me was a show that I watched it as much as possible. It was normally on at kind of a weird time, so I didn't always get to watch it because it kind of depended on if my grandfather was home and he wanted to watch something different. But it's He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, the original.
The
He-Man.
original one, yep.
Yeah. Again, not the atrocity that they're trying to pass off as a
Oh,
cartoon now.
the newest ones are
Terrible.
they've got an interesting take on them. I kind of like the She-Ra ones a little bit better, but
Yeah.
the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, those cartoons, those were the shit in the 80s.
Yeah. So that's my number 9 is He-Man. Number 8.
I wanted to have some type of Looney Tunes-esque show on this list, and I racked my brain and I thought about what show out there did I actually watch, like legit watch, not like, hey, I'm gonna watch this because I'm at line at like a Six Flags park and they're playing this. And the only show that I could really think of kind of in the same vein was Animaniacs. So I put Animaniacs on this list because that was part of that block of shows after school on Fox here, and that gave us Pinky and the Brain. That gave us a bunch of other things. I learned about the countries of the world from Animaniacs, so yeah, I really enjoyed Animaniacs. Not a huge fan of the reboot because they just didn't capture the same spirit that the original did, but yeah, Animaniacs is the shit.
So my friend Jess is actually the voice of Wacko.
Nice.
He is also the singer of the band Rock Sugar. If you have seen the whole Journey Enter Sandman mashup that was viral for a minute, and they've done 2 or 3 records on Rock Sugar, kind of mashes up like 80s classic rock songs with modern metal songs.
Mm.
So they mixed like Enter Sandman and Don't Stop Believing, and then they mixed up like Motley Crue and Rick Springfield and Cyndi Lauper and Lita Ford and stuff like that. They're really cool, hard rock style mashups, but very tongue in cheek. So, but Jess is, you would know Jess. Jess is about 6'4" and has hair down to his waist, and he looks like the '80s hair band lead singer. So he does the voice of Wacko and has for a while, and he does a ton of other voices as well. On famous shows, Jess does, what's some of the other ones? He does Secret Squirrel, Doc McStuffins.
You could make a killing as
Yeah.
a voice actor because between TV, movies, and video games, there's just so much opportunity out there.
He does Two Stupid Dogs, Clifford the Big Red Dog. He did a voice in Cars, a bunch of Tom and Jerry ones. He was in Wreck-It Ralph, a bunch of Tom and Jerry ones. Shrek, Jungle Junction, The Tick, Igor, Biker Mice. He was in Biker Mice from Mars, which did not make my list, but should be an honorable mention because I didn't put that one on there because it was only like the one season.
Right.
Sadly, but
this I know this guy because of Doc McStuffins, and I know this guy because of Sophia the First. That's how I know this guy. And now I know him from Animaniacs, so even better.
That's what I say. If you're looking at his picture, you can see like he looks like your typical Sebastian Bach hair.
It looks pretty gnarly with that hair.
So, but he's a super, super cool dude. Like he is one of the funniest. He's a perfect choice for Wacko. Like he really is a real life Wacko type. Like, but so cool. Animaniacs. Number 8 for me. Sure, it's on your list. Probably much higher. It's only this high on my list, or this low on my list, I should say, because nostalgia kind of won out over, I guess, longevity.
Yeah.
So number 8 for me, Family Guy. Took me a while to get into Family Guy. I didn't really connect to it so much at first, but I didn't really, I guess, understand or really know what it was about at the beginning. I just kind of knew you had the smart mouth baby and the fat dad and the bombshell mom, and it just seemed kind of dumb to me. And then I finally got to see an episode and was kind of like, hey, that's actually kind of funny and
It
snarky, and
it doesn't seem dumb, it is dumb, and that's part of the charm of it.
yeah,
And no, this is just on the outside looking in for me. This was my last honorable mention, and that
okay.
I like, but you can't deny that this is part of that, trinity of
Right.
animated shows that have just been part of the pop culture lexicon for damn near 30 years now.
Yeah,
So
I
can't deny the impact.
can't
Can't
believe it's been that long, but
well, like it lasted like 2.5 seasons before Fox pulled the plug on it.
right,
And then when they came back, because this was back when it wasn't streaming that brought it back, it's DVDs
right.
that brought it back from the dead. So I remember that first episode, when they came back on, they just listed all of the shows that Fox had put on and canceled like after, like in between the two runs. And I mean, if you want to get a show back on the air, this was the way to do it. And
Right.
yeah, for sure.
Number 7. What you got at number 7?
My number 7, I was looking at through, and I was like, what's a show that I maybe don't remember watching a lot when it was like live, but what's a show that I watched a lot because I had like the VHS copies of it. And then I realized, oh, the reason why I didn't watch this because it was back in the day when the Disney Channel like was a premium channel. And now like Disney doesn't give a shit. It's like, yeah, just include it in your regular cable package. But my number 7 is the original run of DuckTales.
Yeah.
Because
I saw DuckTales on there and I was like, that was one that almost never watched. I always seen it like if I went to a friend's house, they would be watching it, or like when I was at Cedar Point and it was on, I would like walk through the media room or something and it would be on, but I never actually sat and actually watched it. So,
I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean,
but it's
I
one of
I
those shows that everyone knows the theme song from, though.
ex-
You know,
it, that the theme song is just
life is
great.
nice.
Exactly. I I had a video game like on my old Game Boy for DuckTales
Mhm.
that I loved. It was really great. And then also the last thing about DuckTales that I love is that I love that Scrooge McDuck and him just swimming in a pool of coins, which if you really think
Right.
about it, that would suck a lot. I make jokes about that all the time. And if I use it kind of as a litmus test. If you get that joke, then I think we're gonna be cool. If you're just like, what? All right,
Right.
goodbye. Goodbye. You're too young or you're too out of touch with it. So have
Somebody never opened a science book.
yeah. So but yeah, DuckTales, love that show. I respect the animated or the reboot of it, but it's still not as good as the original.
Yeah, I don't think I ever saw the reboot either. So,
You're not missing anything, especially since it. You know how Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, they're like House of the Dragon was like, fuck it, we can't replicate or we can't come up with a better theme song, so we're just gonna steal Game of Thrones.
yeah,
Like in some cases, yeah, that is absolutely true, and that's like DuckTales is a perfect example of something that should have been that should have happened. So like theme song alone, yes, DuckTales absolutely should be up there. But
that's what they did with Suits LA, is they
mm,
just like stole it. And, like the very first episode, I was like, yeah, this isn't lasting. This isn't gonna last. And
and it
he
it
was
definitely
like,
didn't. Yeah.
yeah, my buddy was like, give it time, it'll. And I'm like, look, I love Stephen Amell. He is not the leading guy. He's just not. Like he's very good at doing what he does, but he's not the leading man type.
Right.
And to cast him in a role where he basically was following Harvey was just like, yeah, that's a recipe for disaster. And then they surrounded him by just an entire cast of other unlikable people. And it was just like, so is just did not get better. It just didn't, and like the only redeeming parts were the parts that Harvey was in, and it was just kind of like, oh, it got canceled. And I was like, let
Oh
me put on my
no.
shocked face. I mean, I'm shocked, you know.
I don't want
Um,
to say I told you all, but
Yeah,
I kind of do.
No, I was kind of pissed about him. I was kind of pissed about him canceling the FBI and the Equalizer shows. Oh, huge fan of those, but
Hmm.
different topic for a different show. Oh yeah, number 7 for me, a show that goes along with Family Guy, was sort of I won't say the granddaddy of them, but probably the first show to really push cartoons over the top, like push it well past the line of being a normal cartoon. That was South Park.
This will show up later on my list as well.
Yeah. Because South Park, as much as I wanted to hate it at first, it was just one of those shows where, you couldn't not quote Cartman. You couldn't not quote well,
Cow's mom's a big fat bitch. She's the biggest bitch
yeah,
in the
so
whole. Yeah.
it just had so many moments that even not wanting to like the show, I ended up just sort of respecting it a lot. And
Yeah.
the some of the modern stuff with PC Principal is really just kind of annoying as fuck, but the early stuff was gold. And some of the great TV moments. So number 7 for me, South Park.
I will have more to say on that a little bit later because because South Park kind of embodies kind of a good mix of the social commentary, the gross out comedy, and then
Right.
it's got some like genuinely heartfelt moments, and I'll talk about those a little bit
Right.
later.
So number 6.
My number 6, this is where I have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original run. Again, I had all the toys, I had the VHSs. When it was announced that this was coming out on DVD, I don't pre-order anything. I pre-ordered this because this shit was my jam. And yeah, like just a perfect way just to introduce these characters. This is the definitive version. None of the Nickelodeon ones, the Mutant Mayhem one, the gritty ones that they've tried as well. We don't need to take this too seriously. It's about four fucking turtles that are ninjas. Like, calm the fuck down and let's just have some fun with this. So yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the original run in the 80s, another iconic theme song. Yeah, just take note. Just sometimes just have fun with it.
So the thing with the Ninja Turtles for me, even before it came out, I was in college, Saginaw Valley State, and the kid who lived. So when you came down to Harway, our shared bathroom was in the middle, so you kind of had to go one of two ways around it. So the rooms kind of curved, egg shape around this bathroom. So I was at this end of the bathroom, and the kid who was dead across the hall from me on the other side, he was this punk rock kid. And when I say punk rock, I mean he was the old school English punk type. He had the Liberty spikes, he had the long trench coat, he had the giant safety pin through his ear. I mean, he was like, like he was UK subs or death type of, And he knocked on the door one night, and he said, "Hey, do you play Dungeons and Dragons?" I said, "I don't know the first thing about it." He goes, "We're playing over there." He goes, "You want to play?" And I'm looking at him and I'm like, there's absolutely nothing about you, Kevin, that says Dungeons and Dragons. Just nothing. Like everything about this kid screamed punk rock. Like he should have been on a New York street corner, just, Sid Vicious type of punk. So I was bored. I was like, fuck it. I'll come over there and sit and watch. And he said, all right. So he starts walking and I start walking towards his room and he goes, no, we're in this room. And I was like, well, whose room is that? And he goes, it's mine. I said, I thought this was your room. He goes, well, they both are. I was like, you have two rooms. He goes, yeah. He goes, that's the room where he's like, I sleep and live. He goes, this is my studio room.
Oh.
And I was like, the fuck kind of money you got that you can afford to pay for two dorm rooms? You know what I'm saying? Like, because college kids are broke as fuck. Like, we could barely afford one room. This motherfucker got two. So we go in there and he's got a whole goddamn studio set up. Now, not only does he have a studio set up, he's got a fucking pool table in there. And his pool table, he has turned it into a life-size diorama for Dungeons and Dragons. He's got the trees, the castles, the smoke machines. And I'm like, the fuck? So we're sitting there. And at some point, the discussion, he goes, so check this out, man. He goes, there's this new cartoon going to come out, man. And he goes, He goes, it was created by this New York punk rock dude. And he goes, they're going to turn it into a cartoon and it's going to be fucking legendary. Blah, blah, blah. And he pulls these comic books out. And they're the original black and white Ninja Turtle comic books that are probably like priceless today. And he's telling us all about these things, and at the time, like the cartoons hadn't even been made yet.
Right.
And I'm looking at him and I'm like, okay.
No, dude. Just no.
Yeah, I was like, gonna make a cartoon out of this? He goes, yeah, dude, it's gonna be legendary. And I'm like, no, dude, like, I don't really see people getting into the whole like mutant Ninja Turtle thing. Like, I don't know. It just doesn't strike me as something that's gonna sell. And then, about 6-7 months later, they finally came out, and I was like, well, holy shit, he wasn't kidding. Like he was friends with the creator and shit through the whole punk rock thing.
Mhm.
And yeah, I was like, okay. That was my like introduction to, Ninja Turtles was through punk rock heaven and the original, and it turned out to be one of the coolest dudes ever, but it was just
He better be cool if he can afford two dorm rooms. One just
I mean, it weirded me out because he was like, he is the living example of what punk is today. The Rage Against the Machine on my iPhone while I'm at Starbucks. Like he was that dude in like 1989, and he was just like, anti-capitalism, destroy the machine, burn down the regime, as I attend expensive college and have 2 dorm rooms for a private art studio. And it's just
buddy,
like,
you don't get it, do you?
yeah, it was funny. Like, I didn't make fun of the guy because he really was a genuine guy. Like, he truly believed it. But later, when I saw like SLC Punk,
Mm.
I was just like, oh, I swear to God, who the fuck ever made that movie? I swear to God knew Kevin, because that was like how Kevin grew up. Like, he had money. He grew up, his dad was, his dad owned his own business and they had money. So he could afford all the stuff, but he just didn't believe in any of the stuff that his dad believed in. So he was rebelling against his dad. And
Well, naturally, right.
I said at one point I was going to look him up because he's probably like a minister or an accountant or something now.
Something so basic.
Yeah, like I just know he is, but I don't know. He really was a super nice guy and brilliant smart. Like he could do a D&D game better than anyone I've ever met in my life. And, you would have never guessed it by looking at him. But so number 6 for me, very basic. It's the Flintstones. Loved this cartoon as a kid. Staple in the household. Watched it religiously. Just the sort of the tongue-in-cheek parody of Hollywood that it was, with Holly Rock and shit like that, So
We owe a lot of everything on this list to the Flintstones, and
yeah,
it was hard for me not to put the Flintstones at least in an honorable mention. And in my original draft of this, they were much higher. Well, they were in my top 10 period, and now they're not. But and even so, I'll fully admit I was more of a Jetsons person.
yeah,
But the episode where they crossed over, it blew my fucking mind. I was like, how on earth can they do shit like this? But
yeah.
the Flintstones is just one of those iconic shows that deserves a lot more respect than it probably gets now.
And I love the theory going around that Captain Caveman is actually like Barney Rubble. It's kind of, silly, but number 5. What do you got at number 5?
This is a show that I actually, and when it first came out in the early 2000s, I was like, this show is dumb. So I didn't watch it. And then it just celebrated like a 20th anniversary or, anniversary a couple of years ago. So I watched it because I wrote about it for one of the websites back in the day when I wrote for multiple websites. But I have Avatar: The Last Airbender on here. Man, the world building in this is great. If you're looking to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, I implore you, please watch the cartoon. Don't watch the Netflix version. Some of it's cool, but just watch the cartoon. The cartoon is just significantly better. Yeah, just great, interesting world, just fascinating story. If you're looking for a good story about, harnessing your power and redemption and, not sacrificing who you are to, achieve the goal to whatever. Yeah, this one's definitely there. Like I thought this was a kid show, and well, it is, but like I just found it to be so much more than that.
So Avatar is a show that, for me, I've not seen it yet. I've seen bits and pieces here and there. I've saw the original movie, just kind of took it for what it was, which was, a whitewashed version of whatever. The TV series, I watched it again, knowing that it was more true to the source material, but there was still going to be a lot of interpretation. I have seen numerous episodes. They're not like in any particular order or anything because my son watches it. All of my sons have watched it. And I've kind of just watched it
In
while they
passing.
were watching it. So I am going to go back and rewatch it. The one thing I will say about it, I am a massive fan of Dante Brasco and him doing the voice of Zuka. I think I got that right? Zuka.
Zuko. Yeah,
Zuko.
yeah, close enough. Yeah.
Zuka.
Yeah.
I love Dante. Dante is, I've actually got to meet him and speak with him a couple of times, and he really is one of the funniest little assholes you will ever meet. Like he is just brilliant in so many ways. So, it gets a lot of respect for me just because it's one of the multitude of things that Dante has done with his talent. So respect for that. Number 5 for me, it's an all-time classic. Probably the second most watched cartoon for me. It was on immediately, again, growing up, with my grandfather. Dinner was 4 o'clock, not 3:59, not 4:01. At 4 o'clock every day, Little House on the Prairie was on. So you watched Little House on the Prairie. But immediately at 5 o'clock after Little House on the Prairie was Scooby-Doo. So we made sure to always watch Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? And probably next to my number 1, it was the most watched one for me. So number 5 for me, Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?
Question for you. Scrappy Doo, yay or nay?
I don't mind Scrappy.
Okay, thank you.
Glad that
Thank you. Like
glad that he was used sparingly. Never really watched the versions where he was like more of a main character, but I didn't mind him.
yeah,
Kind of annoying, but I get the point of what he was supposed to be and whatnot. So
I think that's the perfect way to describe him. It's like he was fine. He was perfectly fine. Yeah, just definitely overhated, but I love Scooby Doo. I love a lot of the iterations that they've done. Love the movies as well.
yeah, the movies have
they've done
done really well, and
Yeah.
even the what was the one they did with what was it called, Shaggy? Was it Shaggy and Scoob, or just the Scoob movie? I think it was the one where it's just Shaggy and Scooby.
Oh yeah,
And
like
they
a bit of an origin story.
yeah, they met the super dog and the falcon and all of that. I actually found myself liking that
I like that
way
one
more
too.
than I thought I was going to. Like I really thought that one was going to just go off the rails, but it was pretty
Kind of
coherent.
it kind of does go off the rails at times, but I still enjoyed it, and they did a great job of introducing all of these other Hanna-Barbera characters
Yeah,
as well. So yeah, I love Scooby Doo. It's a great pick. When you think that this bullshit is gonna get old after a while, at some point is anybody gonna wise up and realize these kids are gonna fucking figure all of these out? It never got old. It was still really cool.
yeah. So number 4, what you got at number 4?
So all that shit I talked about with Avatar: The Last Airbender, and
Yep.
it has a lot to say about all this powerful stuff that goes out the water or out the door with my number 4, because my number 4 is Ren and Stimpy, and yeah, there's
Oh well.
there's a number of things I quote from Ren and Stimpy that, again, it's kind of a litmus test. Like, if you get this, cool, you grew up in the same era that I did. Like, one is that saying log, it's it's better than bad, it's good. Everybody needs a log. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's so dumb, but it's so hilarious. And then one that's even more obscure, when they play a board game called Don't Whiz on the Electric Fence. Yeah, just I love Ren and Stimpy. I had stuffed animals that when you squeeze them, they fart. Just this was something that my dad and I bonded over when when I was younger. Which, if you have any indication of who my father is, that's just the perfect way to say it. Like he got me into Ren and Stimpy. He got me into South Park. It's like, yep, that's my dad for you. But I I love Ren and Stimpy. I cannot believe that this was on Nickelodeon for a little while. What the fuck were they thinking? Like, honestly, like they should have just kept it on MTV where it belonged. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I catch myself quoting old cartoons more times than my young one does not always get the references. He'll ask me. Well, he asked me the one time. He's like, "What are we doing tomorrow?" And I was like, "The same thing we do every day, trying to take over the world." And he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Never mind."
just don't worry about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
my top two, I quote a lot, and I think the phrase that I say the most is from one of my top two shows. So we'll
Nice.
we'll get there.
So number 4 for me, sort of the granddaddy of modern animation. I remember it in its original form as miniature shorts on the Tracy Ullman show when it looked completely different and whatnot. But number 4 for me is The Simpsons. It's going on what, 35 years, 36 years now, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like 1990 was the year it was on Tracy Ullman or whatever, and then I think the next summer. So it's been around since like the very early 90s and still going,
It is
and
still going. Cannot believe that it is still going. And not only is it still going, it's going to continue to go on for at least another three more seasons. Like, I do not understand how they're going to do that, especially since the original, like, what kind of show out there has to deal with like when somebody like tragically passes away in the cast? It's like, fuck, what do we do from this? No, this show's been going on so long that like some of the key cast members, they just are dying of natural causes. Like the voice of
yeah,
Marge, she died. So like, how the fuck are you gonna have a show without the voice of Marge? Like, I don't get it how they're planning on doing it. But yeah, we will. That's tip my cards, but we will be talking about this soon, or at least for me.
nice. Number 3.
This
At
is
number 3.
this is as close to a cheat as I'm going to get, because my number three, I thought long and hard about. It's like, if there's a superhero show that I would put on my list, which one would it be? Because there's a lot of great ones out there. There's a lot of shitty ones out there too, but I thought about it long and hard, and it really boiled down to two, if I'm being perfectly honest. So, since it's kind of a continuation, I'm looping it all in with X-Men the animated series, because that way I can also claim X-Men 97 as part of this as well. But the X-Men are my jam. They are my superhero franchise. Marvel, get your shit together. Let's get them on screen, because God knows whatever you're doing now is not working. So get the X-Men in there and let's go from there. But I love the animated series because it is the closest thing and the best interpretation in modern media that has gotten the X-Men right. So yeah, X-Men the animated series with with a hint of X-Men 97 in there.
Nice.
Yeah.
So number 3 for me wasn't that I watched this one so much. I have really funny memories of this. I did watch this cartoon a lot, but my best memory of it is growing up where I did. I grew up on a 400-acre farm way up in the thumb in Michigan. My grandfather's house, we didn't have a furnace in it. The house
Mm.
was heated by a giant wood stove in the basement. So we had to continually wood. So we would spend Saturdays cutting wood, going out to wherever we went, whether it was a place that my dad found or my Uncle Marty found, or, on our property, whatever, clearing brush line. We would go out, we would cut all the wood, bring it back, chop it, carry it into the basement, stack it, all of that. And the single most frustration my grandfather always had, my Uncle Bill, who is 3 years younger than my dad. So at that time, he would have been in his late 30s. We would get to his house at 9:30 in the morning, and Grandpa would knock on the door, and we would open the door, and Grandpa's like, I'm ready to go. Where's Bill? Oh, he's in bed, eating breakfast, watching the Smurfs. My Uncle Bill did not leave the house on Saturday to cut wood and or go to do his job as a mechanic. He was a mechanic. His Saturday morning did not start unless he watched the Smurfs first. And that remains to this day at 70, I think 71, 72 years old. He still starts his Saturday mornings with a bowl of cereal and the Smurfs. So number three for me is the Smurfs.
This is truly a curveball that I was not expecting. But that's a great story. And God, the Smurfs, there's another fucking Smurfs movie coming out this year.
Oh, there's another one.
And this one's going to be a musical because of course it needs to be a musical. But yeah, the Smurfs, yeah, good.
So
good
it better
call.
have what's his face back in it again because Patrick Harris, like he was in the original one, so they better bring him back because if it's going to be a musical and you don't have Neil Patrick Harris in it, then that's a goddamn crime against nature.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my number three. I just, it's not that I cared about the Smurfs. They were just kind of on, and compared to the other stuff that was on, it was a little bit better. And as annoying as it was, you kind of couldn't help but like la 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 la.
Yeah, exactly.
So no, that was my number three. Number two, what do you got at number two?
Well, if you're keeping track at home, that means there have been two that I said are coming up later, and this is where they're both going to come up. So, but it's just a matter of
the road.
Which one comes first. And South Park is my number two. And for all those people who say that South Park is nothing more than dick and fart jokes, first of all, you're correct, but you're kind of correct as well, because if you look at a lot of the things that Trey Parker and Matt Stone have done, they've done a lot of smart shit, and it's actually surprisingly good if you could just get over the fact that sometimes the way that they say things is just either super gross or super offensive some people. But there's two moments in South, like three quick things. One, I wrote a paper in sociology class about the current state of, or in one of my sociology classes in college, about the current state of sex education. And I used a clip from South Park to demonstrate why sex ed is important in for students, about how these little fourth graders, they're figuring out how to, like, what to do with a condom. And it's hilarious. But there's a moment, there's like South Park, they have really funny hysterical moments, but again, there's two moments in particular that I look at where it's like, this is actually the true power of South Park, of what they can do. The first one is there's an episode where Wendy breaks up with Stan, and they talk about how the pain that you feel after you break up with somebody, it's good pain, because if you could feel like this, then you could feel it the other way as well, that you've cared about somebody in a way that you never thought you could possibly do that. It's like, that's a really good lesson from South Park. Shortly after that, Stan sees Wendy and is like, "Hey, Wendy, you're a bitch." Like, yeah, like, sure, it had that moment that was funny, but also that was like a really good lesson. But then there was another episode where it was the one where Kenny ends up in a coma, and they had this big debate about the feeding tube, about what they were going to do with that. And the will, like, that was the big thing. It's like, a living will. What are you going to do with it? And this was around the time of like the Terry Schiavo situation with the family versus husband, about what do you do in a situation like that. And they couldn't find the copy of Kenny's will for them to determine whether or not they need to put they either need to keep the feeding tube in or take it out. And the last part of that episode, they find the will and they said, "Please, for the love of God, don't show me in this condition on live television, on national television." And they're like, "Ooh, that's a good lesson, because you're publicly airing all this shit in public for a bullshit reason. And at the very core of this, you're just subjecting this poor woman who's in a coma in a vegetative state to just all of this unwanted national attention. You selfish fucks. So South Park, it's got great moments. It's got a lot of heartfelt moments, but also can't deny it's still hysterically funny.
Yeah. Like I said, some of the newer stuff with like PC Principle is kind of a little heavy-handed to me, and it gets a little repetitive and not as enjoyable. But I again, Cartman makes it funny, and I love Timmy, Timmy, and
Yeah.
then the other one, the what is it, Jimmy?
Jimmy, yeah.
So the battles they have, and when they kind of spun off to the moving out of town onto the wheat farm, I thought was kind of cute.
Mhm.
So they've done cool things to not just be stagnant.
Yeah.
But a show that I really never thought I would like, but I am a huge fan of. So
Yeah.
yeah, so, very good pick. Number two for me, just to show that we watched it everywhere we went, because I didn't watch it at home so much, but it was a cartoon that if we went to a family's house, you went to a friend's house, it was always on, prevalent. It was Looney Tunes,
Mhm.
Bugs and Porky and Daffy and the Tasmanian Devil, and just the original Looney Tunes. Again, not a show that I ever intentionally sat down to watch, but was just kind of always on at different places, or you saw it at school, or you saw it at a friend's house, or you saw it at wherever. So you kind of watched it by proxy almost, because you kind of didn't have a choice.
Mhm.
So number two for me is Looney Tunes.
You know, it's sad because as a parent, like I kind of feel like I failed my children because they don't know who any of these Looney Tune characters are. And we don't have cable, but also at the same time, it's not on anywhere anymore because Warner Brothers Discovery has the rights to these and they're just not doing anything with them. Like it's kind of bullshit what they're doing with them. Like we've gone to Six Flags parks, and each time that these characters are out, both my kids are like, "Who the fuck are these guys? Like, what is this? He's a black duck. Like, what happened to Donald? Like, this duck is completely naked. At least Donald had a shirt on. Like, I I don't know what to tell you with that. But yeah, it's just I feel like as a parent, I should introduce these characters a little bit more. And the closest I got was introducing them through the movie Space Jam. And we got about 30 minutes in, and my oldest was like, "This is dumb. Can we watch something else?" I'm like, "Oh, cute. Yeah, that's
The Space Jam was kind of dumb, like
was kind of dumb. Like it is straight up dumb. So is the sequel. So, but yeah, um,
I've never seen the sequel. I am
you're not.
not a LeBron James fan, so I just never had the heart to even attempt to watch it.
Yeah, you're not missing anything with that.
I didn't figure I was, so
Yeah, Looney Tunes. That's a great pick, and it encompasses so many different iconic characters, and even the ones that like maybe aren't as iconic. Like Marvin the Martian is one of my
yeah,
favorites. I'm a huge fan of Speedy Gonzalez. Despite the fact that he's wildly offensive to some people, but
right.
like and
There's no kaboom. Where's the kaboom?
Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, still one of my favorites.
Yeah,
So good pick. Love that.
definitely for sure with Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner. Another of those. Tell me you've never read a science book without telling me you've never read a science book.
Sure.
And again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, read a science book.
Yeah.
Would not work out well for the Roadrunner. So number one, what you got? Number one.
I mean, if I have South Park at number two and they do an episode saying The Simpsons already did it, like The Simpsons is my number one. And it's one of those shows where I wasn't allowed to watch it growing up, and that just made me want to watch it even more. So those first 10, like I would say like first like 9 to 10 seasons, like even I've got a soft spot for like season 11. That's some of the best television ever. So it is The Simpsons is my comfort show. It's the show that like I can't figure out something to watch because there's too much fucking television on right now. So what am I going to put on? I'm just going to put on an old episode of The Simpsons. And I discovered this at some point because one of my favorite things to say is not with that attitude. And I was racking my brain, like, 'cause someone was like, "Where did you get that from? Like, how come you always say that?" I'm like, "I don't know." And I was watching it, like, I do a Simpsons rewatch of like seasons 4 through 9, at least like once a year. And one year it came up that there's an episode where Homer is accused of sexual harassment, which it's a hilarious episode. And he said, "I've got a solution to this. We could just live under the sea." And they do this, Homer goes into his imagination and he envisions himself living under the sea, and sure, as one does. And Marge is like, "That's your solution to everything. Live under the sea." Like, it's not going to happen. And Homer's on the couch with his arms stretched out and he just looks at Marge and says, "Not with that attitude." Like, fuck, that's where I got it from. Of course I got it from an episode of The Simpsons. But yeah, it's The Simpsons just has a little bit of everything for me, and just I get a lot of my comedy from The Simpsons. I get a lot of my comedy from, or not comedy, but my speaking style, my jokes, my references from The Simpsons and Chandler Bing. So that's The Simpsons has to be my number one, despite the fact that I have not watched The Simpsons and like new episodes of The Simpsons conservatively for at least 20 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
So The Simpsons are number one. Number one for me is the cartoon that I watched religiously as a kid, more than any other cartoon. I still watch it to this day. I have seen every single one of the TV movies that they've made with the characters, and there's been dozens and dozens of those. One of the few cartoons where even the new versions of it are still very well done, very funny. My number one is Tom and Jerry. It's just something about a stupid cat and a silly mouse who, have spent almost 80 years now chasing each other, beating each other up. I liked Tom and Jerry, I think, for this very same reason I liked the Three Stooges, because it was really it was truthfully sort of the cartoon version of the Three Stooges. And, it was just the silliness. I did go back about 3 or 4 years ago and I thought, I've seen so many episodes of this. I don't know like which ones are like what order they actually were. So I downloaded this massive torrent that was from show one all the way to the bottom thing. And I watched them in chronological order of what they were filmed and recorded. And about 3 or 4 episodes in, I was kind of like, "Oh, that's really freaking racist." They had the black mammy and whatnot, and Thomas, and I was just like, "Oh, I don't remember ever seeing that in those episodes. I don't remember seeing those episodes, So it was almost like a Blazing Saddles type of moment of like, damn, and I didn't realize at the time that those were actually recorded in 1940. So when I went back and I looked and I saw that, because I thought they were made in the 60s, which still would have been, I guess, appropriate, but would have been time appropriate.
Of the time. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what
No, I got
would
you.
have been of the time.
Yeah.
Nothing appropriate, just, of that time period. Was said in 1940, and I was like, damn, I didn't realize they were that old. And then I realized, like, okay, and now it makes way more sense because, it definitely would have been something that, would have been of that period. So,
Yeah.
Luckily, those episodes are kind of few and far between, and they moved on from that sort of, type of stuff pretty early on. So, number one for me is Tom and Jerry, just because, like I said, I still watch it. I still watch the movie versions of it, and just a silly. I watch it again for the same reason I still watch the Three Stooges. You never get stuck at this guy.
So the first time that I ever watched a Tom and Jerry anything was, there's like a Tom and Jerry kids show, which kind of like a bastardized version of like Muppet Babies in a way. Like, it's just these, Tom and Jerry, they're just kids, which is stupid because it's a mouse and a kitten, like, who are fighting. Like, what the fuck? But I remember talking to my dad. He's like, "Hey, this show is really good," and he's like, "You do realize there's a different version of this show, right? I'm like, no, what? Like, so he introduced it like the concept of just Tom and Jerry, just not like Tom and Jerry kids. And I was like, I see where this is. And you just see Tom and Jerry's fingerprints everywhere
Yeah.
now. You know, Cat versus Mouse, Itchy and Scratchy from The Simpsons is clearly Tom and Jerry. Even like I'm sure they even influenced like Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote as well too.
So here's something. Why this connected in my brain,
Mhm.
I don't know. But again, it's a reference of how widespread the influence was. If you've ever heard the comedy song on radio or whatever, you know, the here comes Johnny with a specker in his hand and he's off to the rodeo. If you see the episode where Jerry's cousin comes, the Texas one, he's like, oh, Hambone, and he's doing that thing. That first one is actually a direct version of the
Mm.
Hambone song that, you know, the little mouse, the little Texas mouse is singing. And why that connected in my brain one day, and I was like, no, it's not. And then I played them side by side, and I was like,
No
holy shit.
shit. Yeah.
It really was.
Mhm.
Like, it really was the Hambone song that the little
Mhm.
mouse sings in a different version, but the chord pattern is exactly the same. And I was like, wow, that's another victory for Tom and Jerry, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
so that wraps up another episode of the Loud List. Top 10 cartoons. Let's just leave it at that. Greatest, favorite, whatever you
Yeah.
want to pertain. Any comments, things we missed? If you just want to tell us how much we suck, feel free to email us.
We missed a bunch of
Yeah,
things. Like not to mention until now, like no mention of SpongeBob, no mention
yeah,
of like a lot of anime stuff. Which that to me that was like I'm not putting any anime on here because I guess
yeah,
I just haven't found my entry point into anime, and we
yeah.
didn't even cover like a lot of the other like classic ones, which you know it is what it is. But maybe there needs to be a second version of this list coming up.
So what we're going to do, since we missed so much, this would be an upcoming episode, we're going to do a bracket with this.
Yeah.
I am going to take 64 of the best cartoons, including all of the ones on this list, and I'm going to add a bunch to it. And we are going to let the wheel of random death pick the bracket. Basically, all of the show names will go in to the wheel, and the wheel will randomly pick one at a time who faces who. And we will whittle it down bracket style, Sweet 16, March Madness style, to find out who the ultimate winner of the cartoon bracket is. That will be an upcoming show. In the meantime, we got other episodes coming up. We're going to do the greatest 90s jams. We're going to do the greatest country artists. We're going to be doing lots of other cool stuff coming up. We have the greatest Man-O-War songs. We're going to have a bracket coming up for the greatest music-related horror films. We're going to be doing a recasting of Happy Days. We have an episode coming up that will be the greatest Canadian musical artists and so much more. So if you want to take part in this, if you want to send us email or anything, the email will be below. It is riot on the set media at gmail.com. And fine, sir, if they want to create their own podcast and be a part of this network, how them more to contact you and how to go about making that happen.
Yeah, for sure. We're always looking for more guests on our podcast. We're looking for collaboration, and we're looking for people who are interested in starting their own podcast. If you've got an existing podcast and you want to jump on as well, we've had a couple instances of that too. So I've had a lot of fun getting to know some of the people. Like CJ and I met through Facebook, and we've collaborated a bunch of times, and I'm very thankful to not only call him a friend, but call him a fellow podcaster on my network as well. So, but
Hello, pop culture weirdo.
exactly. So you can contact us. We're on social media, so we're on Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads, YouTube, LinkedIn, Blue Sky, all at SPDM Crew. And you could email me at spdmcrew@gmail.com, or you could go to our website, spdmcrew.com, and reach out to us that way.
Beautiful. So get creative. There are so many great ideas for podcasts. Whether you want to do it about mental health, music, movies, pop culture, books, just think outside of the box. I mean, if crypto is your thing, cool. You know, if being a life coach is your thing, cool. But kind of remember, it's kind of pretentious. And there's already like 347,000 people who think they are like the world's greatest life coach. Most of them don't even have their own shit together. So, with that said, have fun with it. It really is something that you don't have to be the foremost authority on it. You just got to have fun. Some things can start as a goof or just sitting around with your buddies eating chicken wings and drinking beer, or just as a simple argument during a football game.
Yep.
And you can run with that idea.
And
This show kind of started as an idea. Originally, it was supposed to be called The Shit List, but at the time, Apple did not allow you to use profanity in the titles. They do now.
prudes.
Right? So, of course, they do now. And now that I've already named it and I can't go back and steal it because somebody else did. But we also ran with the idea it was going to be called the FUBAR show. And again, if you don't know what FUBAR means, you're too young. So,
Nice.
So with that said, be well, treat each other with kindness. And remember, music, movies, media of all kinds has its own unique way to heal the soul.